The Minnesota Timberwolves came out of the 2022 offseason 5 first-round picks lighter and 1 Rudy Gobert heavier. They've put themselves on the clock to win a chip, which is a position every NBA franchise wants to see themselves in, but they haven't started their 2022-23 campaign without a few concerns. To start their season, we saw them matching up against OKC twice, Utah once, San Antonio 3 times, and the Lakers once. They're fighting to stay above 500 and haven't established themselves in a crowded Western Conference, so let's take a look at how they can maximise their talent. After trading the farm for Baguette Biyombo, the Wolves made minor moves around the edges and handed head coach Chris Finch a roster very similar to last season. You've got good length and respectable shooting on the wings in Kyle Anderson, Taurean Prince, and Jalen McDaniels, with the latter establishing himself as one of the better defenders in the league. You got the best big rotation in the aforementioned Frenchman, as well as Karl Anthony Towns, who needs no introduction, and Naz Reid, who had steadiness and shooting off the pine. And you've got great creation from the backcourt, with both playmaking and shot creation in D'Angelo Russell, Jalen Noel, Jordan McLaughlin, Bryn Forbes, and, of course, Anthony Edwards, who we need to talk about. At 21, he's a premier scorer in the league, with room to grow as a playmaker. I'm sure everyone watching has a favourite Ant highlight, but what I'd like to highlight are these two plays in their 2022 play-in game against the Clippers. For context, in this first clip here, he'd scored the first 7 points for the Wolves and had a Morris turn isolated at the top of the key. This needs to be, at the very worst, a good look, but what ends up happening is an Ant turnover, which leads to an and one down the other end for the Clippers. This turned a potential 9 or 10-2 advantage and a certain Clipper timeout into a 7-5 scoreboard and a complete momentum shift. So how do you maximise Ant here, / how does Ant make the most of this scenario? Later in the same game, he shows somewhat of an in-game adjustment in a similar scenario. Morris on his ones and he just walks around him. This play doesn't end up in a basket, but look at the situation he creates. Anyhow, how do the Wolves maximise these situations with Ant as a creator? Let's look at Ant as a passer. Here we have an Ant-Cat pick and roll with Gobert screening Cat's defender. Even with Ant's purposeless energy and body language, they get a wide open 3 for the best shooting big in the league today. Imagine Ant getting downhill off this screen and using his gravity to the advantage of the whole team. It's as if Ant only switches it up a gear if he's promised a shot, and in this play there are some elements of a Spain pick and roll that could unlock this roster's true offensive potential. As for the bigs, it's worth mentioning that they have a failsafe in Naz Reid who they can inject any time and have 5 shooters on the floor. However, they need to make it work with Rudy due to the assets they gave up to get him, as well as the 8 digits to follow the $ that he cashes in on every annum. So how do the Wolves integrate Gobert's offensive assets? In short, they've already done a tremendous job of it, using his size and finishing ability as a target on many plays. On this one, we see another purposeless Ant possession, struggling to take it out of first gear on the pass to Cat, but a pretty read from the feline with a fake handoff, 2 dribbles, and a lob to the big fella, who finishes with 3 opponents joining him in the restricted area. Here we have Ant at the 1, and I'm not trying to pile in on him, but just imagine he comes off this screen with a power dribble and a quick acceleration. Kenrich Williams pinches in on Ant's approach even without the gusto. Anyway, the Ant chucks it to the feline and he uses Williams' soft hedge against him, attacking with the dribble and fighting Rudy on the other side of no man's land, current population Poku, for another lob. Here they just go straight big pick and roll, and Cat really wants to be a passer man. He has a real 1-2 and willingness to pass, and his early season connections with the Frenchman have been pretty crispy. Cat not only wants to be a passer, but he's a really good one. The only thing that holds him back is himself. Sometimes he gets too cute with it. There's also been quite a bit of talk about spacing being an issue with Cat and Gobert, but when there are whole compilations dedicated to Karl Anthony getting bullied off the block, maybe him playing in the mid-post and on the perimeter is a blessing in deception. His footwork is bad and he runs into the key with no plan from time to time, but some of these passes are pretty nice, eh? So there we have a couple of examples of Cat's passing and Rudy's finishing, and a good example of how the Wolves have integrated Gobert's offensive assets. But how do they maximise all of these tools and get Ant in the mix as well? You know, it's a great question, man, and here's where I'd like to talk about the Spain pick and roll. If you want more information on the Spain pick and roll, there's a link in the description to a video from Basketball Immersion that breaks down the play perfectly with great examples, but there's no audio. If you're an oral learner, then there's another link to another video from Hooper University that walks through the play very well. Basically, the crux of the short is that in Spain you have a pick and roll and then another player screens the roller's defender. It's aimed at quick decision making and causing mismatches. It also catches opponents off guard as bigs aren't used to being screened on this back screen. In the case of the Wolves, bigs aren't used to defending the ball handler of pick and roll either. I'm of course talking about running Cat at the point in this set, with Rudy as the roller and Ant as the back screener then flaring out to the perimeter, with shooters spacing. This could be their bread and butter, as we've already seen Cat and Gobert connecting on lobs on a consistent basis, but imagine you had Ant setting a back screen on Rudy's defender. Ant profiles as the perfect screener, low centre of gravity and stronger than a Nordic built on Skyrim. But hang on, didn't I say Ant was purposeless if he wasn't promised a shot? Firstly, thanks for listening, this is already so much better than my first marriage. And secondly, if Ant sets this screen well, it'll force opposing teams into switching on the action, meaning Ant would have a centre guarding him on the wing. The prospect of being able to mix on a big would surely play into Edwards' game and lead to highlights aplenty. The potential Spain could have for Mini could lead to momentum shifts and timeouts from their opposition. Cat to Gobert lobs, Cat simply attacking while coming off the screen, and Kermit Wilkes mixing on the wing are the three direct options from running this set. Not to mention how many defensive breakdowns and how much indirect offense would be generated. This would be sure to send opposing coaches into disarray. Are we overcomplicating it, and are these simply just growing pains? When I say growing pains, this is what I'm talking about. Given the context, Gobert sets a fine screen which gets D'Lo a clean pass to Eddie, who then bangs on a pretty contested look, but the context is the issue. This team shouldn't be scrambling to find offense, especially not a hammer screen with 4 seconds on the shot clock leading to this look. But this is almost a positive. If they can generate 3 points on a look like this, imagine what they could generate running a cohesive offense for 48 minutes. Things could turn sour though. Will Ant continue running the plays the way he has? Will Popeyes get in the way of him and Cat? These are all questions we'll find the answers to as the season progresses, but due to their punt on Rudy, they're on the clock and they're a win-now team. They're not only a fun team to watch, but organisationally, they're in an interesting situation. I know I'll be watching.
Thank you for watching another episode of the Deep 2 Film Room, and thank you to Lucas for writing up that story about the Wolves. You can find more about what he does at the JVG NBA Tribute Show on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you get your weekly podcasts, as well as all of his articles on thedeep2.com. I can't believe it's that easy. And while you're here, be sure to check out the rest of the Deep 2 content, including our weekly podcast articles on thedeep2.com and other Film Room episodes. Oh, and give us a subscribe. That would really help. Thank you, and make it a great day.